And there's something in that where it's like you just are forced to not overthink as much.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, oh yeah, let's just go.
I hate spending time preparing for things.
And often I'm worse when I do.
Yeah. Same.
The more I overthink, the more I get a chance to doubt myself.
Yeah, 100%. No, I'm with that. Preparation is only good when it's preparation age. Welcome to This Feels Funny. My name's Tyler Jones.
And I'm Kat West.
And this is a...
Talk about dad energy, man.
And Daddy's here to welcome you to the pod.
Preparation H, our sponsor for this week.
Hell yeah.
We will accept sponsorship.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that what I'm going to do next is actually just say the tag, we're a silly podcast about real feelings.
We're both comedians, and we do comedy we're trying to be a little bit more real and authentic, but also not take things like too seriously.
Yeah. So because of my dad joke, I fucked up the entire intro to the show.
No, you really didn't, though. You just made it different and unique. Sorry. You didn't fuck anything up.
But what can I do to make me feel better about that outside of your compliment and validation? Yeah.
Yeah, how can you convince yourself to believe it?
Exactly. Because now I'm just sitting here being old second guess Jones nickname, thinking, should we start this episode over? Not gonna.
I'll do anything you ever dreamed to be complete. What you feel is what you are, and what you are is really beautiful, okay?
Yeah. And we got a moose.
Me and the moose are gonna get married.
Yes.
And run away. He doesn't have any more legs, though, so.
Yeah. I don't want to say anything about, like, I almost sang that next line of the song, but then I was like, that's not a good look to some people that might listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
So listen, here's the deal. We're going to continue off of our next... Wow.
Previous episode.
Fuck. Yeah. Last week.
Yeah. Last week, previous episode. We are just still here. It's the same day, and we are continuing the talk on validation.
Yeah.
So in the first episode, we talked about the way that, like giving compliments, validating other people versus supporting people. And this episode, we're going to talk about how we validate ourselves. So,
yeah.
Arguably a lot heavier.
It is, definitely. And I think that that's a perfect place for this particular episode to put that tag in here. We're not qualified therapists or mental health specialists by any means, but we are just people that want to share our experiences with you in relation to this and help maybe articulate it in a way, again, like we said, authentically, but humorously. So that's a good tagline, little content warning there.
Just to keep in mind.
Yeah, something to keep in mind. We'll get into some stuff. All right, so validation of self.
Yes.
We light the as you said so brilliantly, the beacons leading us to Gondor, which is whatever, I guess, right? Okay, Lord of the Rings, love it. Great reference. The next step is actually taking that journey, though. So we know the way, and our support system and our friends and our loved ones and people like that are lighting it, whether we can see it or not.
Yeah.
How do we feel about like continuing down that path, though? It's not so much how do we do it, but like, what if I just feel like I can't?
Yeah. How can we self-actualize on the things that we like logically know to believe and make that into something real, you know, and like move forward?
Tell me about an experience that you had with that.
Okay, so I wanted to start the episode talking about this because talking about validating yourself can be heavy, and it can be something like I personally, when people try to tell you to think better or like yourself more or be kinder to yourself, that is so hard to receive when you're not in the mode to receive it. And so I wanted to share, I've tried to turn this into a bit. Still a little too sad for the stage, if I'm gonna be honest. But
it's not too sad for the pod.
I went through a pretty hard time this last year. I would say this last year is the hardest that the hardest year that I've ever had. And I confronted a lot of things in myself. And there was a point that I got to where I was like, all right, Kat, you're just gonna have to be kinder with the way that you speak to yourself.
Okay.
Even when you don't want to, even when it's hard. And so I went through a period where I had to make it silly. As I've said in stand up before, like for me to make actual change, I have to be able to laugh at it and be like curious about it and not take it all so heavy, not take it all so seriously.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, we're going to work on being kinder to yourself and changing the way that you speak to yourself in your own head. And so one of the things that I did this past summer was I set, I was like 90 days for the next 3 months, you're going to shift your mentality into there is nothing that you like have to do other than wake up in the morning and drink a glass of milk.
Okay.
Once you've woken up in the morning and you've had your little, I was having trouble eating. So milk was like super helpful in like getting the calories in me and getting my appetite started. I don't want to wake up in the morning and eat food. It's usually, even when I'm not sad, I'm just like, that's annoying. I don't want to do it.
Sure.
So all you have to do, Kat, is wake up in the morning and drink a glass of milk. And then you're going to tell yourself, you did a good job. You've done what you needed to do today. Mm-hmm. Every other thing that you do is just gravy. Anything else that you can add on top of that is nice and great, and you'll want to do it. But if you drink that glass of milk, whenever you go into a mean mindset in your head for the rest of the day, just remember, you drank your milk, you're doing a good job.
That's a really good one.
It was so powerful for me. It sounds silly, and that's why it worked for me, because it was something that was so like, because obviously we all know that's not true. I had to do so many other things.
Yeah.
Right? But it was a way for me to shift my mentality and my mindset and my internal monologue, my internal dialogue, whatever, to be a little bit kinder and be a little bit more forgiving with myself, because it is so easy to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
It is so easy to have something that you do where you slide back into an old habit, you do something that's unhealthy for you, you do something that you don't like that you did it, and then you go down that spiral of, why am I this way?
Oh, I know.
I'm such a piece of shit. Yet again, here I am. Doing the thing I wish I hadn't done. And so for me, milk was this way to break that and be like, whoa. Remember? You said this a couple months ago. I guess we're still believing it.
Yeah.
You drank your milk this morning, and that means you did a good job, and you're going to believe it. And after a few months of this, it really did shift my mindset.
That's good.
And make it easier to be kind to yourself, because it's so hard to self-validate, and it can feel so pathetic.
It can feel
To
pathetic,
tell yourself when you're feeling sad and dejected and alone that like you're doing a good job.
I know
like
what
it's
you
just
mean.
it's just so easy for that itself to get defeating.
Yeah, but it's such an all, and like on the complete flip side, especially nowadays, it's probably one of the bravest things that you can do.
Yes.
Like is to look like in the metaphorical mirror and say to yourself, no, you're worth this.
Yeah.
I like that mentality you have a lot, and why it is sort of tricking yourself. And yes, of course, there's a lot more things that you were doing to get out of there.
Of course.
This isn't about getting out of a depression. This isn't about treating some sort of disorder. This is about just simply helping with self-esteem, self-confidence, validating oneself as a person that is worth more than you might be telling yourself that you are.
Yeah.
I love that. And it does help, because it's like I can rely on my friends so much to tell me I'm great. I can rely on my loved ones. But, in time, that can be exhausting for our loved ones.
Yeah.
Because they're constantly telling us where to go. But then it gets to a point, and the reason to exhaust them so much is not because they are sick of giving you something. It's not because you aren't worth it. You aren't worth it. It is because they're not able to care for themselves, because so much is being put onto us sometimes. And that's just my personal experience. Yeah. I've been there on both sides of that coin, but I like that.
You know who never gets tired and who never has too many things to worry about that they can't validate you? The cows.
We're gonna do this.
They will always listen. We're doing this. No, we don't have to go any further.
That's hysterical.
But it's true.
You're about to go into your cow humor.
I have a cow bit.
Yeah.
I haven't made it not sad yet.
Isn't it weird that somebody named Kat has cow jokes?
Hey, I got like, It's really just one cow joke, but like it can. I could probably riff on this cow joke once I get it down. Yeah, exactly.
Oh wait, that's like knock knock.
Moo.
Who's there? Interrupting cow. Interrupting cow. Moo. There we go. So this we're just actually, let's do that. If one of us is talking too much, let's just go moo.
That's
weren't
really
talking
good.
too much.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah.
I just don't
But
want
that is a good strategy. Yeah.
I just don't want to spoil your stand-up jokes on this pod.
Yeah, me either. And so I am trying to like the things that I talk about that are also bits. Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell it all. You're going to get the really real, authentic, and like vulnerable version of me, not the incomplete, just humorous version. I am trying to save some of that for the stage.
Yes. Moo.
Yeah. But when I got really sad, what I would do is I would ask myself,
Yeah.
you're saying some really mean stuff, cat.
That's true.
What would the cow say?
I really do think that is hysterical because moo.
There we go. That's it. That's all they would say. That's all they would say every time.
Me saying moo might be the most annoying thing I've ever done on any podcast.
I would refrain a little bit. Like just I would just like like, you know, maybe like
I would refrain. Oh, Jesus.
I just wouldn't make it your new thing, okay? I don't think that mooing should be your new thing. Should it be a great little way for us to sometimes be like, moo, you know?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I won't make it a new thing.
I'm not saying don't say moo. I'm just saying, like, don't make it, it shouldn't be your thing. I think we've established that.
What so going back to another thing with like self-validation, I'd love to share a little more about what I do for myself.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
Is a lot of times what brings me down are a lot of extrinsic factors more so than intrinsic. So it's I don't have like bad self-talk, but that is something that I remember being taught about like 10 or so years ago by a really great therapist that I saw at one point. But not anymore. And that's been continued to be validated by my current therapist, is like taking that time and getting into that habit of telling myself whenever I am down, I literally I tell myself like, you're doing great, bud. Mm-hmm. Like, I love that. It's the same thing of like, I love following the guy who shares videos all the time, is Sam Al-Khatib on Instagram and TikTok or whatever. He has these great videos, and the way he says that line, everything is going to be all right, pal. I mean, kills me. I can tell myself that everything's going to be okay, pal. You're doing great today, bud. You know, like addressing myself as that is really fun. It might sound weird, but it's like, no, it's not. And then, but I was going through a really, really challenging time back at the end of winter or beginning of winter, like into the year, going to the same thing. And I remember at one point I had to challenge myself to do something. The weirdest thing I ever did was I kept saying, I'm doing all these things. Why do I not feel better yet? And a friend of ours, you know, we talk about coping with productivity sometimes, and there's that fine line, coping with being productive, or am I doing something that actually brings me joy, and recognizing that fact. And big shout out to that friend. You know who you are. I think that I sat there, I stood in front of a fucking mirror, and I forced myself to make eye contact with myself. Mm-hmm. And I told myself repeatedly until I had like a somatic reaction.
Yep.
I am proud of you. Yep. That was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah. And when it comes to like self-talk, that is.
Yeah.
And to continue to do that day after day, it got easier. I eventually I stopped crying, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Eventually not that crying's bad, it's just eventually I stopped having that kind of an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
And I started believing it. And then I started doing that thing where, and we'll talk about this more in our next episode about expression, but I started doing that thing where, and this is for me, I shared a couple of the photos, but every day I will write on my window that has a beautiful view out of Cincinnati, the hills of Cincinnati, and gross north side, 4 phrases of validation for myself. And I will then take like a picture or a video of that and kind of edit it to the theme of what I need, which helps me a lot. But it's like things to remember throughout the day.
Yeah.
And then on a more like logistical note, another good tip that I have.
Okay.
It's 3 and 3. I encourage everybody to do this at the end of the day. I cannot tell you how much it's changed my life. I've done it every day for 4 years now. 5 years. I will write down, obviously this is very standard, but I write down 3 things that I am grateful for accomplishing. Not just grateful for. I specifically accomplished today that I am grateful that I was able to accomplish. That has to be the thing. Can't just be like, oh, I'm grateful for Wendy's because they have my favorite cheeseburger.
Yeah.
3 things that somebody else did today that made me feel good. And then 3 things that I am going to take away from today to appreciate tomorrow. And those are just, that works for me if you're a journaler. That helps me.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a time in my life where I had a pretty good practice of writing down things that, you know, I was grateful for. I want to say to anybody listening, it can be easy to hear somebody say something that you're like, oh yeah, that would help me, but I don't feel capable of doing it, or I don't believe that I could do it. And so that's literally all I wanted to say.
No, and I appreciate that.
But I
do notice that.
Like, because that is really impressive that you've kept up that practice for that amount of time. That is something I really admire, and that is beautiful. And honestly, just hearing you say it, I was like, I don't know if I could do that.
Well, here's
I don't
the
know
thing.
if I could have that kind of consistency.
Well, it goes back to it though, Kat. You absolutely can. You want to know why?
Well, but would.
Oh, that's fair.
That's what gets in my head is like, I could do so many things, but which ones will I actually do?
That ties so well to what you shared with me though. Because what I just said, yes, granted, it's a complicated thing. It's not complicated, but
it's also
it's
beautiful. Yeah, but like that, it is. If you feel capable of doing that, please do it.
It's
I guarantee it would help you.
And if habits are scary, then take what Kat said. You literally just drank a glass of milk every day, and then from that point forward, I feel for myself that I can look at that. If I did that the way that you did that, I would look at myself and say, I can do something else.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I just want so badly that like I know how hard it is. I've been in that dark, stormy, awful place before of I will do any fucking thing in the world, no matter the cost, to just see in myself what I want to see in myself.
Yeah.
What I want others to see in me. And I want to be able to, and once I get to that point, I started to realize like to that point where it's like, I'm not perfect. I don't have, I'm not saying I have like flawless self-esteem. I have healthy self-esteem now.
Yeah.
And it fluctuates.
Yeah.
But when I have that healthy self-esteem, I can more effectively see all the people around me that are lighting those posts for me to move to my down my path, not destination. We have to be careful with that, right? Because we're not going to a place. We are saying just it's a path. And I don't know. I there's so many different things, and we're just so multifaceted.
Yeah. And we're not going to get to the root of everything.
Because we're not therapists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, you know, it can be so hard to start those kinds of processes, but it is wild how pivotal it is to getting to that point where you're arming yourself to go to battle. You're ready to respond to the call. You know, you've believed these things that people say about you, and that you allow that to propel you into action about that, you know?
No, 100%. So, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, the big message is that, like, self-esteem is really hard to get.
Yeah. And it's something that nobody can give you. Yeah. That's the really hard thing. We talked about this a little bit before recording, that you can give compliments to people all day long. And we talked about it in the first episode, but you can't make them believe them.
Yeah, that's true.
But what you can do is you can bring a genuineness and an authenticity to the way that you interact with people, where you aren't trying to get anything from them. You are just truly saying, I see this in you and I appreciate it.
Yeah. No,
and I'm really glad that you showed up here in this time and space and showed yourself. Thank you so much. I see you, you know, and it's really hard to let yourself be seen.
Yeah, it is.
Most notably by yourself. And you mentioned doing like mirror work. And something that somebody said that resonated with me. I have 2 cats. Are you surprised? And somebody said, they said this on social media. They were like, we should all be in the practice of speaking to ourselves sometimes the same way that we speak to our animals. Where it's like, oh my God, how did you get so good? How are you just that cute and amazing and perfect? You're just the best little, look at your tiny little toe beans. How did they get so cute and round? And you're just the cutest little thing in the entire world. And I love you so much.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then like shifting that way of talking, we all talk to animals that way. We have that kind of intrinsic kindness to the way that we interact with animals. And it's so striking how different it is that we can relate to ourselves.
Yeah.
The way that we can, and it is wild the way that I can be so mean to myself in my head.
It's fucking crazy.
And say things that I would never say to another human in the entire world.
Yeah.
I would never dream of saying that to another human. And I'm comfortable saying it up in here often.
I know.
You know, and just shifting out of that without being super harsh to yourself. And then also making that shift translate into physical, tangible actions, like writing things down, like taking action, doing artistic expression, believing in the things that people say to you, believing it yourself, and then having that propel you into doing those things, doing the things that you want to do because you believe you deserve them, and you do.
100%. Well, I
This was good. This was a heavier one, and I hope that something resonated with you. And I hope that if you are somebody, I think that we all are in some ways, somebody who has a hard time being kind to yourself, that this made you feel a little bit seen.
Yeah.
Because it's something that is really hard for people to talk about. But it is something that everybody goes through.
Yeah. And I definitely want anybody listening to remember that it oh my God. I was going to say it starts with one habit. And then immediately it went.
I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard I try.
We're going to get flagged for that. No, that's amazing. Two 90s songs in one, but no, seriously. It does. Maybe
it does matter how hard you try.
Yeah, it does matter how hard
keep
you try.
that in mind.
It does keep that in mind. I designed this podcast to explain in with Kat time. Fuck.
It's okay. We got there.
Thanks for listening to This Feels Funny. Again, my name is Tyler Jones.
And I'm Kat West.
And you can follow us on Instagram. Make sure to go to the handle. It's This Feels Funny Pod. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, whatever. All of them. Okay? Rate and review. Share it with your friends. And make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, where all the video stuff is. Where you can see our beautiful faces. You can see how I almost had a fit of emotional rage over people that don't believe in themselves on this podcast. If you heard it, watch it. I almost had a moment, and Kat was just like, "Bud," and it was great. It was good. It was good. But no, just so follow us there and make sure that you come check us out. In that way, thanks again.
Yeah, you can like and comment, but I want to remind you to say something nice to yourself too. But you can compliment us, we'll accept it.
Yeah, please validate.
Validate.